Alright guys, quick question for you. Is it worth going fast on a gravel bike? I mean, are gravel riders just leisure riders? Are they just riding for endurance and fun? Hey, if you're just riding for endurance and fun, that's cool. I mean, that's great. I've done that too so many times. But there are a lot of gravel races, right? In fact, gravel is the biggest trend in cycling right now. So no surprise that gravel races are becoming a big thing too. So if gravel races are becoming a big thing, you must want to know, how do you go fast on a gravel bike? That's what we're going to be talking about today. But I'm going to make it real quick for you. I'm just going to kind of rattle through the headlines. There's probably more to it than I can cover today. Okay, so let's consider this topic, and while we do, why don't we watch a bit of footage from DK200? Like, it's an epic gravel ride, isn't it? It's one of the biggest races there is. Let's watch the footage from the 2019 DK200 and compare that footage. In particular, let's have a look at, Ted King. Let's have a look at Dylan Johnson. Obviously, he's got his own awesome channel. Vegan Cyclist was also there. And in the background, we're going to play some footage from Gravel Cyclist channel and also the pro athlete who was riding for Jamie's Bikes, Thomas Turner. He's produced an awesome video here. This is DK200. If you want to check out any of those guys, go ahead. Okay guys, let's get into this. Let's talk about how to go fast on a gravel bike. And given that nearly everything that applies to road applies to gravel, I'm going to hustle through this real quick. So I'm not going to make this a super long, super scientific video. In fact, I'm interested in your opinions right now. How do you think you should go fast on a gravel bike? What are your tips? You probably ride a hell of a lot more gravel roads than I do. I only occasionally venture off-road. So what are your tips for going fast? Okay, but from the top, the point is that the same principles apply. Or would you say they don't apply? I'm saying they do apply, and they are as follows. That your body is the majority of the aero drag, maybe 80 to 90%. That your position on the bike is critical and mostly overlooked, like the fine degree of control that you have by putting your body in the right position, maintaining skills, comfort and aero is a skill in itself. Clothing is the most important factor that you can control on a daily basis. In other words, something that you buy that makes a difference. Number one out there is the clothing, because the clothing counts for an enormous amount of drag. So if you're going to look at one factor, look at clothing, look at what you wear. And there's absolutely no reason to not wear a very comfortable but also aerodynamic skin suit or equivalent, i.e. tight-fitting bibs and jersey. Ideally long sleeve, ideally long bib tight version, so that you have least skin. That's a rule of thumb. The less skin you have showing, the faster you'll go. Tire pressure and tire size we've talked about a lot, but you already know now it's about that tipping point of not being too narrow and basically aero but subject to impedance losses, and too heavy, too wide, where you think you're going to roll smooth, and you will, but you're sacrificing weight and you are sacrificing aero. So you've got to find the optimal tipping point for both pressure and size. Drivetrain efficiency, of course, is something that is key in gravel. Why? Because it's a dirty environment, isn't it? You're going to have mud, you're going to have grass, you're going to have cobbles, you're going to have, loose dirt, and that's all going to ingress into your mechanism, into your cassette, into your chain ring, into your chain. And the cleaner you can keep that chain, the more efficient it is. That's beyond any effect of any super ceramic bearings or anything you can prepare. Keeping it as clean as possible is going to be one of the biggest tricks on gravel for sure. The wheels, yes, aerodynamics of the wheels themselves. We don't think about that on gravel because we're so preoccupied by comfort. So you want a wide wheel set, but you also want a deep wheel set unless it's super windy. And the spokes are going to make a difference as well, a surprising difference on rotational drag. Then we come to the stuff you carry. That's the water bottle, the other hydration system, any repair kit that you're carrying. All that weighs you down and is also an aero drag, as indicated by our photo here. So don't get that wrong, guys. Look for the optimal position. And the optimal position is where? Well, it's not a super big secret. The most aero positions are behind the saddle, ideally at an angle that's more behind you than behind the bike. Secondly, in the frame triangle, but if you do go for that position, it would have to be fairly narrow and fairly rigid, like a rigid hard plastic or carbon fiber. The bad positions are generally on the forks or way out front. On the top tube, that's not too bad, and between the bars or between the aero bars, that's not too bad either. So have a think about the position of stuff you're carrying when you're setting up your bike, yeah? And whilst we're on that topic, cut down on clutter as much as possible, because clutter is a recipe for going slow. Okay, so let's talk about position on the bike. What is the optimal position? Well, you probably know, a gravel position is more like an endurance position. On the road bike, it's more relaxed. You're probably on the tops rather than on the drops. You might have a shorter stem. You might have a higher stem. You might have shorter cranks to avoid crank impacts. You might have a higher bottom bracket, and if you've got a higher bottom bracket, your seat may be higher in return. So yeah, it's tricky to get the saddle height, because generally a lower saddle height means more control. A higher saddle height in general, just broadly, means a more powerful position up to a point, obviously, when you're overstretching and your hips are rocking from side to side. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to be comfortable and to be in a good position and to be aero. That's one of the tricks. Now there's a massive debate, isn't there, about aero bars. There's a massive debate, because they do give a hell of an advantage. They give a big advantage on the bike, and a really good website that's looked at this is trytomax.com. So trytomax.com has done some testing with aero bars on the gravel bike and found out that there is a significant advantage. You can measure it in terms of CDA, or in terms of watts, or in terms of time saved. But in their testing, it represented a 4% speed increase over the hoods, and even a 1.4% increase over the drops, and a power saving equivalent of around about 11%. And I don't doubt these figures. Riding with aero bars is basically more efficient, and you can see it in these frontal photos if you need convincing of that fact. Now for sure, not all races are going to allow it, not all competitors are going to use them. You might not have any to hand, but if it's just a case of getting a pair of cheap aluminium bars, I would highly recommend it. In fact, even carbon bars are not expensive these days. What I would like to see, however, and I've only ever seen one manufacturer do it, is aero bars fully integrated as like one piece into your normal road bar design. Because I think the most aero road bars are narrow, plus aerodynamic in their profile, plus they've got the aero bars integrated into them, and that's a rare find indeed. Now real quick, let's talk about tire pressure. If you're talking about tire pressure, then you can use our surface calculator to work out the optimum tire size and tire pressure. So let's say you're set up for 32 bead rims and you're a 170 pound rider, and you've got 20-25 pounds worth of equipment, bringing your total weight almost to 90 kg. If you're riding mostly off-road under fairly severe, dirt and cobbles conditions, then we're talking about a tire size that we would suggest around 39 or 40 millimeter, and a tire pressure around 30 to 40 psi, depending on your weight, like I said above. You can try this out yourself by putting in different variables here and seeing how it affects the tire choice. This is a fully dynamic calculator. Obviously take care of the tire profile as well. You don't want a tire which is like super knobbly, but your conditions are, let's say, mostly hard packed gravel. I'm stating the obvious there, right? Okay, let me mention drivetrain losses now. Drivetrain losses are easily lost, but actually easily solved. You've seen my video on waxing your chain. The grunge chain method will give you 80 to 90% of the gains in about 15 minutes. My view is if you're in a gravel race which is wet or dirty or other bad conditions, then you should wax your chain for that race. You're going to save a lot in removing, or let's say avoiding, the dirt ingress by having a fully waxed chain. Yes, I know you can also wax the cassette, and you can have multiple chains, and you can have different types of lubes that may be optimal for wet or dry conditions, but I put it to you that virtually nothing beats the immersion wax method. So if I was in a gravel race, that's what I would do. I would wax my chain. That would give me so much gains compared to, let's say, ceramic bearings, and I see the Ceramic Speed have brought out their rear derailleur X, their OSPW X for off-road. in my view, this is pretty ludicrous, because the amount of dirt you will get, even with a wax chain, will be significant into the rear derailleur, into the rear derailleur pulleys. There's nothing that ceramic bearings can do to make that situation better. In fact, they may make it worse, because high-end manufacturers tend to leave off their seals, or have minimal grease, or have very thin oil, or have a product that is basically allowing the ingress in dirt very easily. So just be careful, guys, when you read the hype about ceramic bearings and then you go for a product that's ceramic off-road. I'm not sure that's the wisest thing in the world. Now, what about wheel and spoke drag and aero? Is this something that's important in gravel? Well, yes, we're waking up to this fact that aerodynamics work even at slow speeds. Anyone that argues otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. Aerodynamics, in terms of time saved, is actually more important the slower you are. Yes, in terms of power saved, obviously it's higher at higher powers, but it applies for everyone. So you can get a decent saving no matter what speed you're going. But just in case you think guys racing off-road at gravel are slow, they're not slow. They're often going 30-35 kilometers an hour and more downhill. So having an aero advantage, especially out of the pack, is definitely one that you want. Certain manufacturers like Hunt Wheels or Envy are coming up to this fact with products like the SES 3.4 AR disc. Or in Hunt's case, the Hunt 35, the Hunt 30, the Hunt 650B. I'm not advocating their wheels specifically, I'm just saying they've thought about this issue. And if you check out their website, they've got a whole engineering paper on does aero matter on gravel. And yes, it does. You're saving at least 9 watts from the front wheel and around about 5 watts from the back wheel if you go for the right wheel and tyre combination. Now, I've already mentioned the importance of where you carry your bag, your stuff, your water bottle, your equipment, yeah? But in general, you want to cut down on clutter. And it's really nice to see a couple of products come to light which are fully integrated gravel bikes for the road. I mean, they can be used for the road. They bear a lot of resemblance to road frames. I mean, is there really a difference between a road frame and a gravel frame? Yeah, I know the clearance is greater, but in road frames with this, they have greater clearance anyway. Do they have a slacker geometry? Do they have a higher head tube? I don't know, but I'm just saying, other than a higher bottom bracket and increased clearance, I don't see a lot of differences, and that's fine, because it means you can use your cutting edge 2020-2019 road bike for gravel. Not many modifications are needed. If you're running disc brake, probably the clearance is already there for 30-32mm tires. Yeah, you're going to have a problem if you want to go to 40-42, but for most purposes you don't need to go to 42. 32, 35, 36 is perfectly okay to run off-road in decent, mixed conditions. So 2 products that I've really noted recently that kind of hit a home run on a bike that's designed for gravel are this Ribble CGR HRDSL, fully integrated, tricked out bike for the gravel conditions. And just today we've got the announcement of the Ridley Canzo Fast. Now check out this Ridley bike, guys. This is actually a 1x22. How did they do that? Well, I believe it's a 1x11 with a rear hub that magically, with a remote, changes to a different gear ratio. Yes, the rear hub itself has an embedded micro gear system that enables you to shift from the bars and basically double up on your gear ratio as if you've got another chainring, but you actually haven't. You've got the single chainring at the front, and that is a really neat idea. So these fully integrated bikes are going to save you some time on a gravel race for sure. Alright guys, that was my really quick run through of how to go fast on gravel. Maybe you knew all these things anyway. Maybe you think I'm being too theoretical, but actually I'm not, because do you remember the 2019 Dirty Kansas? Colin Strickland was the guy that came first in under 10 hours on that race. An amazing performance, yes, for sure. His watts were consistently high throughout. I think over 280 watts for that 9-10 hour ride. But here's the thing, check out his images from the day. Look at what he took away from what I'm saying now is important on a gravel bike. Check out his ride. Okay, so first of all, what can you see? He's got the deep dish Envy 3.4s that I mentioned. That is a wheel set that's got a 25mm inner bead, 32mm outer bead, and a depth of 39 up front and 43 on the rear. What's more, he's got those aero bars. Did you notice the aero bars? Yeah, for sure. He's got the aero bars up front, and look at his position. His position is super aerodynamic. He's got an aerodynamic road helmet with minimal ventilation. I don't know how he did that. There is a little bit of ventilation on there. And he's got a very tight fitting outfit on there, which would honour any road cyclist anywhere. He's got almost no clutter on the bike. In fact, he's got his number actually aerodynamically wrapped around his stem. He's carrying his hydration in the back, the absolutely optimal position, causing almost no drag for him on the bike and almost no clutter anywhere else. I looked it up, guys, and he's 170 pounds as a 6'2" rider. He's carrying around 20 pounds on the bike. Let's call that 190. So our surface calculator would say go for 39mm. He got really close to that at 42mm. And if he went for 42, we'd advise 39 psi. He was actually running around 40 psi, which is quite interesting. Okay, lastly, I will say there's one thing we haven't mentioned, and this is a sticking point in gravel, and I don't know how to get beyond this. Strickland's bike was 18 pounds or 8 kilograms. And if you look through the lists of gravel bikes, this is the one thing that holds me up. This is the one thing that I think is something that needs to be substantially improved in gravel that we haven't yet got. And that is the overall weight. You know, if I was paying, let's say, $11,299 or euros for a gravel bike, I'd want a bike that was substantially lighter than 8 kilos. I think some of that's related to the wheel set. They're over-engineering it for bad conditions. Some of it's related to the tyre choice, but some of it is relating to the frame, the disc brake, and they're perhaps nervous to give us a bike that is too light. And I can understand that. But for me, when I'm used to road and I'm used to my kind of normal Focus Alco Max disc coming in at 6.5 kilos, I'm going to say it's a significant disadvantage to be at 8 kilos. Alright guys, that's enough from me on how to get faster on gravel. As I said at the beginning, I'm interested in hearing your tips on how to get faster on gravel. We've just released a blog on this. It's on our website, cyclingapps.net, which is also merged with FastFitnessTips. Cyclingapp.net will take you direct to our blogs. We've got around 20 blogs now. Also, we've got a lot of our calculators embedded directly into the website. We've got our training plans, we've got our YouTube videos, we've got coaching options, we've got a lot of social media stuff and a number of surveys which are live right now. Thanks for your help, thanks for following us, thanks for your support. As always, I appreciate it, and next time you ride gravel, guys, you'll know how to go fast. See you soon. Take care. Stay safe out there.